Hello. So, this is a short series where we'll talk about biology O level past papers and how you solve them and what your approach should be in the exam to make sure that you solve them within time. Furthermore, we'll be talking about incorrect options as well. So, not just the correct answer, but why the incorrect answer is incorrect. So, let's just quickly start with question 1. So, the diagram shows a plant cell. What is the function of this cell? So immediately what I'm seeing here is a root hair cell. And if you're not able to recognize that, I'll help you in identifying all of in one of these. So whenever you see a cell like this, so a cell with a rigid cell wall, you can see this cell wall. I'll line this here is a cell wall, and it's giving the cell some structure. And so whenever you see this, you think either a plant cell, and what's the next type of cell? A bacterial cell. So obviously the plant cell are much more high yield and you should focus more on this. Anyway, so this is a plant cell, and then this tail here, this tail structure here is going to tell you that it's a root hair cell. Okay. uh, some students do get confused between a cell called cilia, but that's different because that's in animals, and so the animal cells will not have these cell wall, so it will be much more like wobbly, like this. Let me draw it properly. So it will be much more wobbly, and they will have many more short limbs, and unlike this, which has only one. So the question itself says, what is the function of this cell? So the function of this cell is to carry mineral ions, to photosynthesize, to take in carbon dioxide, and to take in water. So immediately I'm thinking the correct answer should be D, because the root has to absorb water and mineral ions. However, you might get confused in option A because it also mentions carry mineral ions, but here it's written stems. This is not a part of stem, this is a part of the root of the plant. So this option is incorrect. And what are these cells? What cells carry mineral ions along the stems? Those are your xylem vessels. Next, to photosynthesize. So that's also wrong. Which cells photosynthesize in plants? Those would be your palisade mesophyll and your spongy mesophyll. And one more cell that's called the guard cell, we'll talk about later, that opens the stomata. And then to take in carbon dioxide, this is your stomata. And so option D is correct. The next question, the diagram shows a structure that was observed using a microscope. What does the diagram show? An animal cell? So we discussed an animal cell does not have a cell wall. So because it has a cell wall, it is not an animal cell. A bacterium, it does look like a bacteria because there's cell wall, there's DNA, there's cell membrane, and there's ribosomes and plasmids. So it could be a bacterial cell. Is it a plant cell? So plant cells do have cell wall, plant cells do have DNA, but plant cells don't have plasmids. Plasmids are not found in plant cells. And then a virus, it's not a virus because a virus does not have any cell wall. They might have DNA or RNA, and they don't have ribosomes, and they don't have plasmids, and they don't have cell membrane. Usually what they look like are like this. They have a protein code and some genetic material inside. So they look something like this. You might have some limbs, and you might see them like this, but those will be different. So question 3, the diagram shows a structure found in cell X. So all of these structures are within cell X. So you have your cytoplasm, you have your cell membrane, and you have your nucleus. So this cell does not have a nucleus but has a cell membrane and cytoplasm. And they have given you a bunch of cells, so liver cell, red blood cell, root hair cell, and xylem vessel. So a liver cell, this is a very obvious question that they want you to know, and the answer here is red blood cell, because red blood cell lack nucleus. Okay, so you should know this. However, you should also know the other cell types. So liver cell is a normal cell of the human body, so they will have cytoplasm, they will have nucleus, and they will have cell membrane. So this will be your liver cell. And then they have next written root hair cell. So obviously root hair cell are found in plants, and they have cytoplasm, nucleus, and cell membrane. So you will also write root hair cells are also here. And then we have xylem. So xylem vessels don't have any of these. Xylem does not have a nucleus, xylem does not have any cytoplasm, and xylem does not even have cell membrane because it's a dead structure. It does not have any live structure. So xylem is out of here as well. So xylem will be outside of it. Okay. So next, am I missing anything here? Okay, so what is an example of an organ? Digestive system. So they've already written system here, so you would cancel out this option because it's an organ system, not an organ. Eye, quite possibly it can be. Blood, no, because blood is a tissue. Blood is not an organ, you should remember that. And then neuron, that's also not true because neuron is a single cell. What does a collection of neurons make? They make your nerves. They make your brain. Brain is an organ, right? And what do brains and nerves make together? The nervous system or neural system. So that's that. A new type of small a new type of small vertebrate with lungs is discovered. This is identified as a reptile. Which vertebrate in the key is a reptile? So whenever you think of reptiles and amphibians, you would think that they don't have any control of their body temperature. So if it is maintaining a constant body temperature, they're either mammals or birds. So options C and D are wrong. So let's move on here. So they have a moist skin or they have skin with scales. So body temperature control we'll think of here as amphibians and reptiles, and we need to differentiate between both of them. So for reptiles, they do have scales, but they don't have moist skin. This is for amphibians. So your answer will be B. Okay, and for option C and option D, so skin with fur is mammals, because mammals have skin with fur, and skin with feathers are birds. There are some other characteristics of mammals that you should know. They produce milk, they give live young, they give birth to live young, and with amphibians and reptiles, you should know that they give birth, they lay egg in water, and reptiles lay egg in dry air, and they don't have shells. Amphibians don't have shells, and reptiles have shells on their eggs. So question 6, molecules and ions can be moved into and out of cells by active transport. What statement about active transport is not correct? So they're asking about active transport, but something that's not correct. So we'll go through them one by one. Active transport takes place only in plants. That is not true. It takes place in animals, bacteria, in all of these things. So this is incorrect. So this could be your answer, right? Because this is incorrect, but we'll see all of the other options as well. Active transport moves molecules and ions against a concentration gradient. This is correct. If it's not against the concentration gradient, if it's towards the concentration gradient, if it was towards, that would be diffusion. Okay? And active transport uses energy to move molecules and ions. That is also correct. They use ATP. And if it does not use energy, then it is called diffusion. Molecules and ions are moved across partially permeable membrane. That is also very important and true for active transport. And what other phenomenon uses a partially permeable membrane? Osmosis. Okay, so these are something that you should be knowing on your fingertips. So question 7, frogs are amphibians and so have partially permeable skin. They live in and near water such as lakes and marshes where the water contains low concentration of mineral ions. They absorb any water they need through their skin, and biologists are concerned that frogs living near coast will be endangered if global warming leads to a rise in sea level. Seawater contains a high concentration of mineral ions. What would happen to the frogs if their habitat became flooded with seawater? So they're asking a very simple phenomenon. These are your frogs, right? And let's say this is the amount of water here, and this is the amount of water here, and these are your solutes. This is normal. So this is when they can take water in, they can control the water in their bodies. However, the scientists are troubled that what if the water becomes too salty? There's so much salt here and so little water. So what will happen now? So you should always remember that whenever we're talking about living things, we're going to talk about a partially permeable membrane. And whenever there's a partially permeable membrane, we will think about osmosis. So when there's so much salt outside, so the concentration is high outside and low inside, water should leave from osmosis, right, to balance it out. So water will leave the amphibians and they will get low water and dry out, right? So let's review the options here. So water will move into the frog by osmosis. We just studied it's going to move out of the frogs. So this option is incorrect. Mineral ions would move out of the frog by diffusion. That is also incorrect because the mineral ions are in a higher concentration outside the frogs. So they should move inside, not outside, right? So this is also incorrect. Water would move into the frog by diffusion. Water would move into the frog. That is correct. But diffusion part, is that correct or not? Because diffusion occurs freely, right? If there is a partially permeable membrane, then it's not diffusion. It is osmosis. And so the last option, water move out of the frog by osmosis, that would be correct. Alright? The diagram shows an enzyme molecule. Which diagram shows the substrate molecule for this enzyme? So this is a very easy question. It's just a very visual representation. So obviously A very clearly fits here. This part will go here and this part will go here, right? Let me clean that up for you. So this part goes here and this part goes here. This is not gonna fit. This is also not gonna fit, right? How are you gonna fit all of these? I'm not gonna discuss this. It's very self-explanatory. At this level, you should know this. So the enzyme amylase catalyzes the breakdown of starch into maltose. The effect of different pHs on the time it took for this breakdown to occur when all other variables were controlled was investigated. Which graph shows the results of this investigation? So there's a reaction taking place and we've calculated the time taken for the reaction. So whenever we think of an enzyme, you will think that over the extreme pH, right, over here and over here, the enzyme will denature, right? And an enzyme has an optimum pH. Some enzymes might work best here, some might work best here, some might work best here, right? So for amylase, you should know that the enzyme amylase itself works mostly in neutral pH, slightly neutral or slightly alkaline, so around 7 to 8 and 8.5, right? So we'll be looking at this pH in the middle of these graphs. The reaction should be fastest and on the extremes it should be slowest. So in option A, let's start with option A. Let me clean this up first. So in option A, in the middle, the reaction is not really happening. The reaction is completely stopped because the time taken for the reaction is very high here compared to here when the time taken is quite low, right, at a lower pH. So this is definitely not our answer. And time taken here also and at a very alkaline pH is also very low. So the enzyme is working best here and here, which is very unlikely for an enzyme because an enzyme has one optimum pH. It does not have two optimum pH. So this option is incorrect, right? Similarly, option B. So as pH increases, the rate of the reaction is increasing, and that is incorrect for this particular enzyme because amylase, as I mentioned, works best at a neutral pH or slightly alkaline pH, right? So it is working in neutral and a slightly alkaline, but it is working way better here. What enzyme would this be? Most likely it's some enzyme in small intestine, so your lipase, or or let's not discuss that. That might be outside the scope of your syllabus. Similarly, this enzyme is working best at an acidic pH. You should know this enzyme. It is pepsin. This might be correct for pepsin because it works best here. However, a graph should not look like this. A graph should look like this, where this is the correct option because in this option, the optimum pH seems to be 7 and the enzyme is not working at the extremes. So in all of the options, the enzymes should not work in the extremes and the enzyme should denature in any other pH that is not optimum and should stop working. So if we consider that, only option D makes sense. I'm sorry if I'm not able to explain this one properly to you, but if you still have any confusion, you can drop down a comment and we'll discuss more. So what are features of enzymes? So they're just basically asking about enzymes. So they act on specific substrates. That is true. They are highly specific. So this option is correct. So option D goes. They are carbohydrates. That is incorrect. So enzymes are proteins. They are There's something very important, you should know that. So option 2 is incorrect. And they are catalysts, that is also correct. So immediately B is the answer. They are not involved in some but not they are involved in some but not all metabolic reactions, that is also incorrect, because they are involved in all the metabolic reactions in your body. So there's a diagram that shows a transverse section through a leaf, and in which parts of the leaf can photosynthesis take place? So immediately I'm seeing, and I would like to label all of these for you. So this is your cuticle, and F is your F was your it slipped my mind. Anyway, it's the covering of the plant cell, so it's the outermost layer, and the outermost layer does not have chloroplast. That much you should remember. So anyway, G is your palisade mesophyll, and K is your spongy mesophyll, and L is your air space, M is your guard cell or stomata, J is your phloem, H is your xylem. So which one of these photosynthesize? So that would be your palisade mesophyll, so option G, and then K, your spongy mesophyll, and then M, your guard cell. So these are the ones that photosynthesize. So it's K and L, then L is not a correct option, so that's incorrect. E and F, which are both incorrect because both of them don't have any chlorophyll. G and M, that might be correct, that is actually the answer, I think. And H and J, so no, they are your transport system. What do they do? Xylem carry water and mineral ions, and phloem carry sucrose. Which transverse section photomicrograph shows the position of xylem and phloem in a non-woody dicotyledonous stem? So always remember, whenever we're talking about the stem, xylem inside and phloem outside. So you should know just by looking that A and B are your stems and C and D are your roots. So which one would be the correct option here? That would be option A, because xylem is inside and phloem is outside. Okay, so phloem is outside and xylem is inside. Here it's opposite, so phloem is inside, but that's not phloem, that's xylem. And you should also be able to appreciate them, because you can see all of these rigid holes, all of these rigid hollow tube-like structures that look like xylem, right? And compared to phloem, it looks much more sturdy. So should be able to differentiate between both of them. Besides this, I think you should also know for roots, and for roots you should know that this option C is correct for roots. So this is a correct picture of the root, because xylem is in the center and then phloem is outside. Okay, and you should also be able to appreciate the structure of xylem here, this very rigid wall structure compared to phloem here, because phloem does not have any rigid walls here, they have very thin walls. And This rigid wall represents xylem vessels. Students set up apparatus to measure the uptake of water by a leafy shoot. They recorded the position of the air bubble at the start. They observed the apparatus for 10 minutes and recorded the distance traveled by air bubble at 1 minute intervals. They then switched the fan, pointed towards the leafy shoot, and recorded the distance traveled by the air bubble from the start each minute for another 10 minutes. Which graph would they draw from their data? So without looking at the graphs, I would like to, in my mind, imagine what's happening. So there's a leafy shoot here and this is filled with water. So what is going to happen is transpiration. So water is going to evaporate and the leaf will draw water up, right? So the water will go up from here, from the roots and from the tube. So it will suck the water and the air bubble will move in this direction. So the rate of transpiration, as you should know, depends on the humidity, right? So when the rate of transpiration is dependent on humidity, so when the humidity is high, the rate of transpiration is low, right? So there's so much moisture in air already, so the plant cannot transpire very easily. However, if I blow a wind on this, right, if I blow a wind, so all of this moisture will be blown away, right? And so humidity will decrease, aridity will increase, and so transpiration will increase as a result. So initially the rate at which the bubble will move will be like this, and when I open up a fan and point it towards the leafy shoot, it should shoot up. So it should look something like this. So which option looks like that? So immediately I think it's option D, because it's, as you can see, at this point the fan was open and the rate of transpiration shot up, right? And all of the other options, for example in A, the rate of transpiration dropped. That is incorrect. The rate of transpiration should increase, so the distance moved should also increase, not decrease. Similarly, the distance moving stopped in B, which is incorrect because transpiration has increased, so the air bubble will also move faster. So B is incorrect. And similarly with C, it does not show any increase or decrease, which is incorrect because transpiration did increase as we discussed. So in questions like these lengthy questions, just on a glance, I would suggest you to skip it. Like immediately you would skip it and do all of the other questions and then come back later to these, because it requires a lot of reading and you never know, if you don't have enough time you might lose more mark than you would gain from just spending time over this question. However, our job here is to solve this, so let's look at the question. The percentages of each gases in inspired and expired air are measured when a student is resting and exercising. So they've given you a bunch of gases: nitrogen, oxygen, and carbon dioxide. And this is when you're breathing in, and these are your breathing out. So let's just label them like this. So this is when you're breathing out. B is when you're breathing out under rest, and C is when you're breathing out exercising. And they've asked which statement is not correct. So again, you need to focus on the option that is incorrect. So the difference between the percentages of carbon dioxide in expired when exercising and expired when resting is 1.5. So let's calculate that out. So 6.54 here and 5.04, right? So difference, meaning subtraction, and expired air when exercising and expired air when resting, right? So when we minus this, uh, 0.5 and then 1. So 1.5, that is correct. So option A is correct. When resting, the difference between the percentage of oxygen in inspired and expired air due to oxygen being used by respiration in the body. So that is correct because more oxygen is used, right? So it was only used from 21 to 16, so around 5%, right? To around 6.5%, right? So the percentage is increased mostly because you're running, so you're using more respiration. So option B is also correct. Inspired air contains 52.5 times more oxygen than carbon dioxide. Now, obviously, this looks a bit scary at first, and so we'll skip this option because it looks like it requires us to do some calculations. So let's do D first. So the percentage of oxygen taken from inspired air is the same as the percentage of carbon dioxide added to expired air when exercising. So let's calculate that out. So the percentage of oxygen from inspired air uh, while exercising. So 21 minus 14.5. So that would be, sorry, 7.5. Let's just fix that. And then percentage of carbon dioxide added to expired air when exercising. Oh, sorry, this is 6.5. I don't know why I did that. I'm so confused for that. Oh, sorry for that. And then you have your carbon dioxide initially. Uh, so this option is also correct. So only option C is left, and we would label that as correct here. But then again, you can never be sure, so we'll also be solving this. So inspired air contains 52.5 times more oxygen. So to solve that, 52.5 times, right? So 52.5 what? And then carbon dioxide. So into 0.04. Let's solve that. And this is, let's just, the answer is 2.1. And they have said 52. So this is definitely incorrect because it's oxygen is 21, not 2.1. So this one is incorrect. Sorry, it got a little bit messy, but I hope the concept is clear now. Which balanced chemical equation shows aerobic respiration? So whenever you're thinking about aerobic, you think about oxygen. So which of these show you oxygen on the left side? So I only see oxygen here, so option D is correct. As you can see, this is your sugar molecule and this is your O2, and then we're burning it in respiration. Option A is photosynthesis. Option B is breaking down monosaccharides to triose sugars. That's outside your scope, never mind. And then option C is breaking down sugar to make alcohol. That is also outside your scope. Oh wait, this, you should know this. This is actually in anaerobic respiration. right? Because you're making carbon dioxide, and this is anaerobic. It is not entirely anaerobic because lactic acid is made in all of this, but you should know this is somewhat anaerobic respiration. And then let's see, blood is made up from a number of different components. The pie chart shows the percentage of volume of each of the component of blood. So this is your plasma, this is your blood cell, and these are your white blood cells. What is the percentage of volume of blood for the component that is the function of transporting oxygen? So from all of these, which one transport oxygen? That is like very likely like RBCs, they carry oxygen, right? And then so we'll calculate this portion right here. So this is obviously like very close to 50, but like more than 25. Less than 50 and more than 25. So option B and C. And this is very close to 50 rather than like 25. So I think it's C. It's a very visual question, and there isn't much to explain. So yeah, let's move on. What is the total number of atria and ventricles that the blood passes through during complete circuits of human body? So this is how it works. So this is your, let me draw. So let me draw a heart. Let me explain it to you in a pictorial manner, so it's easier for you. So this is your right atrium, right ventricle, left atrium, left ventricle. So the blood comes from the body to your right atrium. It goes to your right ventricle, goes to the lungs, then goes to the left atrium, goes to the left ventricle, then goes to the body, and then comes back to from the body, right, to the right atrium. So this is your deoxygenated blood, right? From the body, the deoxygenated blood is coming, and it goes in your right atrium. From the right atrium, it goes to the right ventricle, and from the right ventricle, it goes to your lungs. There it gets oxygenated, right? Oxygenated blood is picked up from the lungs and then goes into the left atrium, to the left ventricle, to the body, and then again. So in this one cycle, there are 4 heart chambers. One, and let me use a different color. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. So in one circuit, there are 4 chambers. So in 2 circuits, there will be 8 chambers. So the correct option would be option C. The table shows the range of percentages of different types of tissues found in the walls of the aorta of people of different ages. Collagen tissue is present in the walls of blood vessels to provide strength and support. Which conclusion about the range of the percentages is correct? So they're asking about the ranges here. So let's just immediately write the ranges. So the range here is 38 minus 46, right? 46 minus 38, that would be around 8. And this 21 minus 14, 7. And 36 minus 13, that would be 33, and then 23. Similarly here it's 2, and then 28, and then wait, this is a 24 and 51, that would be around 30. I'm so bad at maths. This is so real, boys. This is like I have to use. I'm a doctor, by the way, so I've done all of this. So if you've taken biology, you're probably really bad like me at maths. Sorry for that. But it is what it is. We're biology people. We suck at maths. What can we do? So, what's the question? The range of collagen tissue found in people of both age group is 39. Which is very off, actually. There is no range that 39. Let's cancel this. The range of each type of tissue is smaller in old adults than in young adults. That is incorrect because there are so many discrepancies. We can't. So, for example, the range here is lower in adults, older adults, right? This range is smaller in older adults, but this is larger, right? And this is also larger. So this is very incorrect. The range of muscle tissue in old adults is 4 times greater than in young adults. So let's see. So this is muscle 7 and 20. Okay, so yeah. So option C is correct, I think. And then the range of elastic tissue in people of both age groups is greatest of all 3 types tissues. So in elastic, that is really opposite actually, because the range is greatest here and here. So that option is like out of the picture. I really hate statistics questions. They're really annoying in biology. So anyway, let's continue. The table shows information about 3 different blood vessels, P, Q, and R. One of the vessels is an artery, one is a capillary, and one is a vein. Using the information from the table, what is the cross-sectional area of the lumen of the vein? Okay, so you have to identify which one is which. So this is very obvious. So the diameter here is very small, so this one is definitely capillary, right? And the diameter, both of these are quite similar, so we'll have to look at the thickness of the wall, and the thickness here is a lot higher. And when you which vessel have thicker walls? So obviously it's your arteries, because you know there is so much pressure. The walls of your arteries are much more thicker compared to the walls of your veins. So right, so this is your artery, this is then your vein, because the thickness is less. So now they want us to find out the cross-sectional area. So they've given you the diameter, so the equation is pretty simple, pi r square, and then this is the diameter, so you half it, so 2.5 squared into 3.14. So let's solve that. 2.5 times 2.5 and then into 3.14, that gives you 19.6, and that is this, right? So the answer is B. A lot of you make mistakes of like solving it for 5, so you will do this into 3.14 and then you would get something completely off, and they definitely bait you for this, and they would definitely have the option for this. Let me just show you quickly. They definitely, I'm so sure they have the option for this. So you have 78.5, see, which is incorrect, but a lot of you do end up selecting this, forgetting that you know you have to, they have given you the diameter, they do that to you. So be sure to make sure you're reading it correctly if they've given you the diameter or they've given you the radius. So the next question, one more stats. Okay, the table shows the number of deaths estimated to be due to smoking in England each year from 2009 to 2019. Okay, so it is a decreasing pattern. Using the information in the table, which statement is correct? So you need to successfully identify which is the correct statement. So the number of deaths decreased every year from 2009 to 19. So let's see, it's decreasing here, decreasing, 80 to 78, 78. Okay, this is an increase, right? So option A is incorrect. The number of deaths decreased by 9% between 2009 and 2019. So for this, 74,600 and 82,000. So this value and this value, right? And let's just solve it with a calculator because we suck at maths. Oh yeah. Sorry for that. So 90.5. So obviously for percentage you will multiply by 100. Sorry, I forgot to write that. But the answer is 90%, 90 point. Sorry, it was 90.9. So it's like 91, right? And then this one makes sense because like 100 minus 91 is 9. So this might be the correct option. The lowest number of deaths in 1 year occurred in 2018. So how many deaths in 2018? 77,000, right? So do we have anything in 76? Yeah, very obviously. What am I thinking? This isn't correct. So this is, lower. And the greatest decrease in the number of deaths in 1 year occurred between 2017 to 2018. That is also very incorrect because there's a 800 fall here, but then there's a fall of 1,400 here. So that option is incorrect. So the option B is correct. Your answer is option B. Anyway, I'd finish this video here and we'll solve the next 20 questions in the next part. I'm really tired. You must be tired. Go take a break, like and subscribe. Goodbye.